Well, Henry,
Stephen Peeples.
my goodness, it's great to see you.
Man, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I haven't seen you for a while.
A bit.
Yeah, a week or two.
Rumor has it you have a solo show going on here.
Still up, yeah.
I came down to see if you might be able to walk us through it a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Tell me a couple of stories about some of your favorite photos and some of the ones that haven't been seen so much.
There are a few. We tried to put a few new ones up.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So, well, this is very nice.
Let's start over here with this picture of me.
Sure.
Yeah. Here's an early selfie. Me and Paul and Linda. I met Linda as a fellow photographer in a photo lab in New York City, Modern Age Photo. And we got to be friends, and then, gosh, she married Paul McCartney. And then one day she called me to come out to Malibu, where they'd rented a beach house, and she needed a picture of her and Paul. We spent the day around the swimming pool, and then we took this picture at the end of the day, and then she told me they wanted to put it on the cover of Life magazine, which was like, my God, the holy grail for any photographer. So that was my accidental Life magazine cover.
Great, and selfie, an early selfie. Now, this was not with a small cell phone.
No,
obviously.
it's with an Nikon film camera, kind of holding it up in the air, you know. What you do is you focus on your hand, and then you put the camera in that hand and take a picture.
Gotcha. Very good.
And here's, of course, one of the granddaddy pictures.
Yes.
I mean, what a great album. So, of course, you know, that's why it's a granddaddy photo, because it was, as they say, a seminal album, wasn't it? I mean, that music was so great. And I mean, I loved their music. I mean, every picture in here, you know, I'm a fan of these people. I mean, they're all heroes of mine, and all friends as well. Because, I mean, I started out, I was a musician, picked up a camera, you know, after some years, and just photographed my friends, really. I didn't even think of myself as a photographer.
And a lot of your friends at the time you photographed them were not famous yet.
That's true.
So it was...
I photographed all my friends in Laurel Canyon, and then one by one they became famous, which was good for me, you know.
Oh,
I mean, I knew these guys. This is 69. I met Stephen in 63 in New York City. I met Graham in 66 in New York City. So I knew those guys really well when we drove around West Hollywood one day and took that picture.
Yeah, it's a great story about the missing couch, and the next day it was gone.
Right, yeah. They're in the wrong order. It's Nash, Stills, and Crosby, because they weren't named at the time. And we took the picture, and when the film was getting developed, they said, "Oh, we've decided we're Crosby, Stills, Nash." And we said, "Well, we can flip the picture, but then Stephen will be playing left-handed." So we went back, and I said, "Well, go back and jump on the couch, take 5 minutes." So we went back, no house, you know. That
this is one, the Aerosmith at Woodstock '94 we haven't seen before.
No, it's kind of a...
Whoops, sorry, just bumped into that.
Kind of an outtake, not iconic, but, you know, the funny thing is, you take these pictures, at the time, you look through the proof sheet, you pick 2 or 3 of the perfect ones, the iconic ones, you know, and then you print those all the time. 20, 30, 40 years later, you look through that proof sheet again, and you say, wow, I never even looked at this one. I mean, the outtakes become more interesting. And that's what I mean, there's Steven Tyler with his head back, you know, howling at the moon, on stage, late at night.
Dreaming on.
Yeah. Here's a Laurel Canyon photo.
Oh, yes.
Kind of a weird one. I don't think we printed that up for a show. That's Steppenwolf in a burned out house. It happened to be right next to Joni Mitchell's house. And it was a musician. It was some group that lived there. It's got speakers, burned out speakers. And so this was an outtake from the album cover that we did. Happy Birthday Steppenwolf. It was the birthday one. And here's one. This is in Amsterdam. I spent part of a year in England with Stephen Stills, and we went to Amsterdam to see the Rolling Stones. And we were in the dressing room, and I was down on sitting on the floor, photographing across the coffee table, right? And I wanted to get a nice shot of me. But this girl kept looking at me and posing, and smiling. And I wanted to say, I'm invisible, But she kept smiling, and I took that picture so that she would quit looking at me. And that's the picture. I didn't know it was his wife, right? Here's, of course, a Laurel Canyon shot.
Yes, one of the...
Joni Mitchell in her backyard playing her mountain dulcimer.
Now this was yes, we're in the backyard, and it was very rustic, just right in the backyard.
A mountainside, I mean, Laurel Canyon is basically little bungalows on the hillside, really. And you walk out the back, and you've got all the brush and the bushes going up the hill. And that's what that was. One of my favorites, Sweet Baby James.
Yes.
I just love that because it frames nicely, It's a nice sort of a horizontal portrait. I just really like that. It's a very direct.
And you have color photos of the same.
Well, yeah, it was
pose.
the color one became the album cover, but it was cropped, funny, not cropped, not full frame, like that. I never crop a photo myself. I mean, everything in here is what I saw, full frame. I don't blow up part of it, just.
Because sometimes there's business going on in the background that's interesting.
Yeah, could be. This is the New Barbarians, which was Ron Wood's solo group. He made an album for Columbia, and they said, okay, now you need to tour and publicize the album, so get a band together. So he asked Keith, they were between Rolling Stones tours, and they got Stanley Clarke, the jazz bass player, to play. And we kind of barnstormed across the country. I was with them for 2-3 weeks. And here they are walking out to the little airplane. That is Ron Wood's wife right there. And that is a tour companion, a friend of Keith's. And they're walking out to the airplane. What you can't see or hear in this photo is this is a boombox. And it's playing really loud, funky reggae. And they're walking out to the plane to the beat of it, so you can see them all walking out.
So they're skanking off the plane, right?
Yeah, they're walking towards the little airplane.
Oh, toward it, okay.
Yeah. Of course, Janis Joplin at Woodstock.
Yes.
I happen to have the best seat in the house because I had the all-access pass, and I could stand on the little walkway just at the lip of the stage with the film crew. Tina Turner, I think that's probably the Forum or something.
Now that's another one we haven't seen very frequently.
That's a new one. I
Tina
never
shot.
printed that. Yeah.
Very good.
My
That really captures her entire in motion.
yeah. Now see, I wouldn't have printed that, but my millennial page thought that was a great one. Said, oh, so that sometimes proof sheets that I've looked at 100 times, and then I show them to somebody. And they say, oh, that one. I say, that one, wow. Oh, I've never really looked at that before. Oh, my God, it's amazing,
Good call, Paige.
Again, the New Barbarians. And so that's on one of those little planes, the 4-passenger plane.
Right.
We were headed down to San Diego for the last concert of the tour. And the band and all the roadies and everybody rode on a bus for 3 hours to get there. These two guys were going on a small plane, and it would take 45 minutes. And he was bringing his wife, and he brought his tour companion. That's her feet right there. But his wife, at the last minute, decided she couldn't go. And so luckily, the road manager, Richard Fernandez, was a friend of mine from the Eagles tours. And he said, Henry, you go with them. Because who's going to ride with them? There's an empty seat. But he knew I would be able to take pictures like I used to do on the Eagles airplanes, So I got to ride. And I said, so these guys were a captive audience. But wait, I was the captive audience, right, for their shtick, It was a wonderful time. Of course, the opening of Woodstock. Richie Havens.
What a
yeah.
brilliant performance that was.
Oh my God, that was great.
90% improvised.
Yeah. And so this is 69. In 64, I went on the road with Richie Havens. Well, the folk music. We used to do, folk tours of colleges and stuff. And we spent a few weeks on the road with Richie Havens, who's one of the acts on the tour.
With MFQ, right?
With the MFQ.
Modern folk quartet.
Modern folk quartet.
Easy for us to say.
Right. Woodstock again. There's John Sebastian and his tie-dyes out there playing for 450,000 people.
This is one of your classic shots because it really shows the massiveness and the singularity of the solo artist out there.
And what you can't see is that this goes all the way over this way, and that goes all the way over that way. It's way bigger than my lens could get. But there he was. He wasn't on the bill. He lived in the town of Woodstock, and he went to the festival on a Saturday to see all of his friends on stage, and the next act hadn't appeared yet, so someone thrust a guitar into his hand and said, "Quick, run out there, sing something." But he had taken acid that day, but he went out there and he sang to that audience like it was his best friend. And he told me years later, I said, it seemed like that, you're singing to your best friend. He said, yeah, you know how you sit across from the coffee table and you smoke a joint with your friend? It was like that, he said. And then, of course, that's one I like better of Janice at Woodstock. Yeah. That only, that I could get by virtue of the fact that I was on the film crew's platform shooting. Here's another selfie. Me in the Monkees dressing room with Jack Nicholson.
Now, this is great because the only other one that I've seen from this session was the one where Jack is peeking out from underneath the wardrobe rack.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, right. Took a few that day. This was, they were doing a concert in Salt Lake City for the movie Head. And Jack had written something, was a co-writer on that. Yeah. One of my favorites, David Crosby, doing what he likes to do best, hold a gun to his head. Funny, they made a documentary about him recently, and this was going to be the poster. And the movie, whatever the movie people wouldn't let him use it not because of the joint, but because this signifies suicide. Isn't that crazy? The joint's okay, but not the gun to your temple.
Right.
So
interestingly, that's his profile photo on Twitter. Has been for years.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't think any people are getting the idea to commit suicide from it. You might light up a joint, right, and enjoy life. Love this one. We call that "Put Up Your Dukes." Right.
Now, what was the juxtaposition between Richard and an American flag?
Yeah. They're all accidental. This was taken in, Gary Bergen was my graphic artist friend. He lived in Hollywood, and he had a 2-car garage that we painted white inside and used it for a natural light studio. It had big windows and no cars ever went in there. It was our shooting studio. And we had that flag up there from something a week before, I think Jon Stewart, the folk singer. And it was still on the wall. And Richard came over just to have some headshots done. And he saw that flag and started doing all that stuff. He started doing shtick, kind of like Robin Williams, 20 things in 5 minutes, it's just bang, 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 he's going, I'm going click, click, click. And that was one instant. Put up your dukes,
Yeah, I'd love to see the contact sheet for that or the outtakes.
Well, they're colored.
Colored, yeah.
Yeah.
So did you shoot slides or film them?
Slides. Always shot slides.
Right.
Here's the doors at the Hard Rock Cafe in downtown LA.
Drinking with the old guys.
That's right. Yeah, we just finished taking pictures at the Morrison Hotel And Jim said, let's go get a drink. So we drove down to Skid Row and found a bar called the Hard Rock Cafe. And took those pictures in there.
It was interesting because Morrison seemed to be genuinely engaging with some of the bums there and trying to get those stories for song ideas, you know.
You know, Jim was a very kind of a quiet guy. He was like a poet. He was, I used the word bemused. He was bemused, you know. So all these old winos were in there, right? And they, you know, he bought beer for them. He'd buy them a beer, and then they'd tell him their life story. His, like, you know, oh, I left home at 16, joined the Merchant Marines, and he'd go, oh, you know. And he didn't talk much, but he listened. And they loved that, you know. This guy, what, this nice young guy, he cares about us. They didn't know it was the Doors. I mean, they had no idea. And I mean, they weren't even sort of that well known at the time, but Neil Young with his Gretsch White Falcon.
It's the Balboa Stadium, San Diego, right?
Yeah, which isn't even there anymore. It was a big football stadium. You see, and it was like an hour or two before the concert. There was no dressing room, no backstage. It was a football field with a big stage. So CSNY spent a couple hours on stage, you know, warming up, plugging in. In fact, Neil had just changed the strings on his guitar. And I took a few shots of that. And I wanted to get a close-up of him, but I didn't want to stand in front of him, you know, and get in his way. So I got down like this and took that picture looking up, and that was kind of...
Oh, but the angle looking down the neck of the guitar is
Yeah.
just great.
It was just a moment, you know. Yeah.
Speaking